Speaking of Kvara, the next award is Young Player of the Season. Now, some of the nominations we have from, I'm trying to find the Italian ones, Young Player of the Season. Fede Farco, he says Udogi from Udinese or Scalvini. Joe Spagnoli says Kvaratskhelia. And the North Curve says, interesting one, young player Zanoli, which is an interesting shout.
Okay. Yeah.
And Curva Mundial Pod says, young player of the season, Hoyland. Adam, are any of those on your list?
Yes, one of them is, and that's Destiny Dodgy. I think he's been superb in that left-hand side, being quite adaptable for Udinese. And his record speaks for himself, like 34 games, 3 goals and 4 assists. So he's been superb in that respect. And it's a shame that he's ending up at Spurs for you, Rory.
Really annoying.
It feels like that is a heck of a signing already.
Yeah.
I think he's got a bright future ahead of him as well for the Italian national squad. I'm surprised he hasn't been called up to many calls in the national squad. So it feels like a missed opportunity for Italy there. But the other one that I was going to put out there is someone that's done quite well recently for the Italian under-20s squad, and that is Tommaso Baldanzi from Empoli. I think he's had a real breakout season, and I appreciate against that kind of shadow of Kvaratskhelia, he's done really well. I feel like he's at a club that he's able to play game time, learn from his mistakes, but he's already kind of on the lips of a lot of those managers around where he could end up. He's already been talked about potentially going to Napoli already. Again, he's had 30 games this season, 4 goals. He's been superb. I think, like, in terms of an exciting young player and prospect, he is someone that I've really enjoyed watching the more and more this season has progressed. But yeah, I think those two will be overshadowed by a certain Kvaratskhelia, unfortunately, when it comes to the comparisons, doesn't it?
It's hard not to. I'm going to delay the Kvaratskhelia talk a little bit because I think he's going to win it, but we need to kind of give some flowers to some other young players as well. Zanoli, I think, is a really interesting shout because he's a player that was on loan from Napoli, I believe, to Sampdoria.
Loan from Napoli,
and in a Sampdoria team that obviously looked absolutely piss poor. I remember he came on against, now, who were they playing? I think they were playing someone towards the bottom of the league. Maybe it was Cremonese at home. But I was watching Sampdoria and they were struggling bravely, but they were losing. They just had a player sent off. And Zanoli came on and instantly stood out. He just instantly, his touch on the ball, his close control, his ability to find space, he just instantly stood out as the best player on the pitch. And I thought, holy crap, who is this guy? And I think 100%. Every time I've seen him, he's looked like a very, very exciting player. And I think for him to go back to Napoli now, and for them to have another option as a creative midfielder, there's a bit of energy in that midfield is really exciting. So he's a player I'm very, very excited about. I think if he hadn't been in that Sampdoria team playing that type of football or that badly, maybe he would have stood out a bit more and more people would have noticed him. But I really wanted to give him a shout out. And I also wanted to say, no one's really mentioned him, but Bove from Roma, I thought he's done a really good job this year. I think he's a player that Roma fans didn't know how to feel about for a long time. And they were always like, what does he do? He doesn't really do a lot. But I think what he does is all the dirty work. And when we talked to Joe Spagnoli as well, he absolutely loves him because the amount of effort he puts into the pitch. I think he's made more appearances than most people would have anticipated this season. I think Roma have used him more than they thought they might. But I think that's because of his performances and he's done so well. So I think he's another player that deserves a shout. But we need to talk both Hoyland and Kvaratskhelia. Should we start with Hoyland? Because his season finished quite quietly because of the injuries, but he was really exciting at the start of the season, right?
I think there was a lot of hype with him. And don't forget, the reason, and this is one of the reasons why I'm going to not consider him for this award, is because I think it took him a little while to get adapted to Gasperini, Atalanta, and obviously Serie A. I think it's taken him the best part of 6 months before we saw the best of him. Because I think there's definitely a huge prospects on anyone's hands right now. There's rumours that he's obviously going to be snapped up by a bigger side already, but I'm hoping that he has another season at Atalanta personally, because I think if he can get that under his belt, be consistently scoring again for Atalanta, boy, have we got an exciting prospect in the league. I mean, he's got the whole package in that respect. He feels like he's a clone of Haaland, almost sounds like Haaland when you kind of think about the name. Just whistle it a little bit and a few times, and you might get Haaland out of it. But it's just, yeah, I don't really consider it because he's not done it consistently for the duration of the season. Compared to the likes of Zanoli, for example, where, yes, I appreciate what you're saying about the fact that he's at a lower side, but I've also seen him against Juventus, for example. There was a really good, when I told you about the time when Sampdoria were getting back into the game and giving Juventus a game or run for their money in Turin. That was the performance of Zanoli there as well. He was superb that night. Rasmus Højlund, don't get me wrong, he's scored some superb goals and he's been, I think, lethal in front of goal as well once he's got adapted to it. But yeah, I'm not going to dispute that guy is a hell of a prospect. Looking forward to it.
He's got the Haaland profile a little bit as well because he's big, he's strong, he's fast. He looks Nordic, like he does look like the Pro Evo version of Haaland, and that's not to be disrespectful to him. I love Pro Evo, but it does feel like they're just a whisker away, and it's no wonder that Manchester United and all them are already being linked to him. I think he's been fantastic, but yeah, get him another season, another 2 seasons in Serie A, full seasons under his belt, but an incredible start to his Serie A career, and instantly one of the most exciting strikers in the league. So a fantastic start for him. Definitely. But I think I'm going to have to push hard again here, Adam, and just say that Kvara gets Young Player of the Season. Because I remember all the way back in July, August, I was doing research for the pod, and I was sat watching all the signings, like YouTube videos of every signing of every Serie A team to see who to look out for, right? I had great fun. But I remember watching Kvaratskhelia, right? And I had to remind myself I was like, no, it's the Georgian League. It's the Georgian League, right? The standard isn't that great. This guy can't be that good.
Yeah.
And then I saw him just off both feet, like pinging it top corner, beating men no matter where he was on the pitch. Just, it seemed like the ball was his and everyone else was just there to like try and get in the way. And I just watched this video and I must have watched it 2 or 3 times. I was like, this kid is unbelievable. Like if he even starts slightly like this, Napoli have got a hell of a player. And I know he was getting a bit of attention while he was out in Russia because he was playing for Dynamo Moscow, right? And then he had to leave. Or he got to leave because of the conflict. And Napoli was so good in snapping him up quickly because he was starting to get attention. But I think he still kind of came from nowhere for most people. No one expected him to be this good. And like, what were your first impressions of? I just remember from the first game being like, holy crap, this guy's unbelievable.
I'm with you. I don't think I necessarily thought it would be a player that would do so well this season. I remember there's still that clipped like video of us two talking about Kvaratskhelia and you trying to take the piss of me trying to pronounce his name at the time, which I wasn't that far off at the time, but didn't still get it completely right. But yeah, I think both of us were of the mindset of he's a player that will break through this season, but maybe not necessarily have the game time. You know, we thought Spalletti would, maybe bide his time with him, but he's been undroppable. He's been that impressive. And I think the big point is that he's, as you've said, so strong on both feet. And at one point, I think we were both kind of wondering, who's going to stop this guy? Like, what the top players do and have 2 people marking him out of the game. And subsequently, that kind of started to happen after January, didn't it? It's kind of was a double-up teamwork from Inter Milan that kind of started it all off. And they kind of started to show that Kvaratskhelia had to kind of bring himself out of it. He needed to work a way around it. And he's going to get that now for the duration of his career, I suspect. I think, if anything, the summer's welcome addition in the sense of he's going to have some time to rest. But he's also potentially going to be the type of guy that will work on those little areas that he didn't get the better of certain defenders. And I feel like there's elements of his game, like maybe get a bit more stronger, for example, physique-wise. And I think just being a bit more clever. There's been the times where he's been kind of staying on the wings, but maybe he needs to do that little bit of magic by coming inside and maybe doing a little bit more for the team itself. But that said, this is where we're just nitpicking, Rory. We're nitpicking at little things now. And this is incredible for a guy that's, 21 years old. set Serie A on fire, this talent already automatically pays itself. He's more than just the money that Napoli have spent, and it's an incredible bit of business. Well done to the scout that noticed him. Let's put it that way. And Napoli are just laughing. They are laughing. But Kvaratskhelia could not be more happier for the guy, because you can tell he's embraced the city, he's embraced Napoli, and he's going to become basically a Maradona-esque figure if he carries on like this, right? If he does another season like this, this guy could go on to even greater things.
Like, they already absolutely adore him and Osimhen. Like, for their murals to already be on the wall next to Diego is a testament enough to how much they love him. But I think he's just... You're right to talk about how his season ended, because I think a lot of teams did just start doubling up on him, and he did get quite quiet. And I think what that was it was literally the second round of fixtures started, and every team had kind of learned their lesson and gone, okay, right, now we've got to keep this guy quiet. But that's part of him developing. That's part of him getting used to the level that he's at, and seeing that he's going to have to find other ways to figure these defenses out and other ways to make it difficult for him. But I think he's got the ability and the football IQ to be able to do it. And I think next season, he'll now start the season knowing, okay, this is what they're going to do to me. Well, this is how I turn it on them. And I think he does just need to add a few more elements to his game. Like you said, I think cutting inside a bit more, being able to play centrally would be really useful for him as well, I think. So he could switch positions with the front three alongside him. But I think incredible player. So many goals and assists. So key for Napoli in his first season. He could be best newcomer as well if there was an award. But I think young player of the season, it has to be Khvica Kvaratskhelia. Congratulations, Khvica. Well done. Fully well earned. Nice. Good.